What is up everyone, my name is TCG, and today I thought I would be finally teaching you how to play green yellow Yamato in a bit more detail, and at least I would hope to achieve that. So as you may know that my testing videos that I've been doing have already been kind of doing that, but it doesn't always really end up in the way that I wanted to, in the sense that I don't really get to showcase or kind of actually teach you in depth on what the deck should do or what the cards that are in the deck should be doing. And basically the idea of today is I'm just going to give you a full-on deck profile, and then as I go I kind of explain in better detail rather than just teaching it as I go. The ideas that I'm going to be showing you are all so far all theoretical, in the sense that I kind of did notes as I go and kind of understood what the deck should feel like. I also did look at some Japan games before the meta came out for us, and basically that is what I'm basing off my knowledge of. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first, I'm going to go from lowest cost to higher cost, just so we are up to date. So if you're going to kind of mirror the list that I have on the sim, it's not going to be exact, so this really shouldn't be a problem. So as for searchers in the deck, I only have two searchers. These two searchers are Kozuki Momonosuke. Kozuki Momonosuke is basically a one-cost searcher, and you need to tap it to use it. When you tap it, it kind of looks for the top 5 cards of the deck, and you can pick one Land of Wano card and add it to your hand, and then place the rest at up the bottom of any order. The keynote here is that Kozuki Momonosuke shares the same name, the exact same name as the adult version, meaning that you would normally not be able to search it. However, since this is what the kind of a pay one searcher, you can still pick it up. But I also thought that this might have been an issue with the ruling, but the reason why I'm mentioning this now is I will be mentioning it later, but that is a good thing to note. It's not something for discards per se, but it kind of has to tie in with the 5 drop in that case. The idea of Kozuki Momonosuke is that you really don't need much of him, because the kind of way the deck works is that you're probably not going to really be using searchers all that much. I mean, it would be great if you do, because that's an extra card every turn, but the idea is that if you're going to play him turn 1 or turn 2 against Yamato, you kind of just try to fish out for 2Ks, and you always try to fish out for 2Ks unless you need like a combo piece, like maybe a 2-drop Hiyori, the non-counter Hiyori, or maybe you find another Momonosuke, because you can search this Momonosuke with this Momonosuke to the adult Momonosuke. So that's kind of the idea behind it. Notable cards that you can always pick up from this is the Kikunojo as well, and the 9-drop Yamato. This card is really strong in this deck. I feel like it kind of did win me games in the long run, considering that maybe I kind of fished out for a 2K and then I used it at the end of the game, which kind of saved me. There's multiple instances, right? But I just wanted to showcase like one of them. So next up we have the 2-drop Hiyori with the trigger instead. So 2K Hiyori basically is used there mainly for counter. If you trigger it off life and you're against Tweeny Zoro, who's just gonna swing 5Ks at you, this just makes it all that much harder for him. However, so far from my end, I did end up using this once, and it kind of did save me the game by like just a hair, because since I got my leader up to 6K and he swung 7, I only had another Hiyori in hand and kind of saved my ass right there. But that's pretty much it. I do recommend trying to maybe utilize her in dire situations, but other than that, it's just a searchable 2K with the Momo at best. Next up is the other Kozuki Hiyori. This card is so good. I love this card the moment that it got revealed, and I just learned about the card. I was like, this is such a great card, because the effect of the card is you may add up one card from the top or bottom of your life cards to your hand, and then you add one from your hand to the life card. So essentially, it's there to stack cards in your life, right? Ideally, most people would use this to place Onami in their life, or they place like Kikunojo if they're like within the threshold. And if you're like one life, you can kind of use it and place you're the one who should disappear, which is kind of a better Amar trigger in a sense. There's not really much else to say. This card really ties in well for situations where you want to kind of cheat out cards, you know, so you can kind of like place it. So like in the sense that you swing 8k with Yamato, right, and then they take, and now they're like active for us, so that means our triggers can work. And then you can kind of play Hiyori, and then you play, for example, like Kikunojo, and then once he swings at you with whatever, you just take, and then you play her for free. So it's like a really nice card. I really do like the card. It's quite an interesting card to say the least. Definitely one of my more favorite cards in the deck. Next up is a playset of Onami. Onami is arguably one of the most anticipated cards in OP-06, I would say, just because of the banish feature. I mean, this card is just so good for yellow. It kind of gave us something that we really didn't need, if I'm honest, but we'll take it. I ain't going to say anything else. If there's any yellow haters there, all we need now for yellow is cost reduction, and I'm being chilling, but I don't want to get like hate in the comments. But yes, Bandai, please give us cost reduction so I can cut out literally anything. Anyways, the card says up to one of your leader or character cards gains banish for the turn. I mean, this is kind of straightforward. You would go with this. You play her like maybe turn 5. Or I mean turn 3 at 5 done, because Yamato, you're gonna swing for 8 next turn on the second turn, and if he blocks, his hand's probably crippled, which means that he probably doesn't have another 8k to swing. So you could go like, you play Onami, give him banish, attach 3 done, and then you swing for 8k, which would be either detrimental to him or he just loses 2 life like completely. There's also great ideas you could probably do with this. Is you probably could play it with 9-drop Zoro if the game lasts that long. This thing is a fucking menace. I will get into this, why this card is so strong, but this is also synergizes great with the Nami. That is pretty much though what I could think of. The card is just very versatile. It really does more than it's supposed to. On top of that, it's also a Thunderbolt trigger. It's like a proper Thunderbolt trigger, not like the event Zoro that we're gonna get for NA and EU. It's definitely, arguably, one of the stronger cards in the deck, but not like anywhere else to like a Hod Jones or a Zoro. It's just quite a good card, to say the least. Up next, we have a playset of Izos. Izo is rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. The reason why I play Izo, right, in the sense of what it's played for, right? First things off, it's a 2k, it's a 3-drop with a 3-drop 3k body, which is kind of a good stat line for the card for what it's supposed to be. I mean, it could be better, but overall this is quite a great card. And also the effects, you know, you kind of rest the 4 costs, and if you're playing against like the black matchup, you just rest the free Borsolino for free, and it ties in with the leader effect. The leader effect, if you don't know, if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you can give up to 2 rested Dawn to one of your characters, which means that you can play Izo at the end of your turn, right? You play Izo, you rest the blocker, and then you could also play maybe Hod Jones, and then you rest 3 blockers in total. Or what you could do is you rest this, his only blocker, and then you load up on Yamato, and then you get another swing in if you really want to. It's just, there's so many lines and things you could do. You could even rest a Kuzan with this thing. You play rest Kuzan, and then you swing everything into Kuzan, because Kuzan's quite a problem for this deck. It's arguably one of the decks that really make the deck, it's really one of the cards that makes the deck crumble. However, we just try to not let our opponents have a break, and they should always try to focus on catching up. But like I said in my earlier videos, it's not about being hyper aggro, it's just creating a situation where he doesn't really have the time to play what he wants. Anyways, yeah, I think the card is a really good card. It's just a trick at the end of the day. If you're really not gonna use it for like to rest a blocker or something. Up next we have Nekomamushi. Nekomamushi is quite an interesting card for 2 Dawn attached. This character can also attack your opponent's active characters. So I would like to also mention that the trigger does say if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you play this card, which means that what you could do is that once your opponent eats the first 8k swing that you do on turn 2, literally everything in your deck needs either like would trigger almost always needs 3 or less life cards for your opponent to be able to be activated. So this card just kind of triggers off itself for free if your opponent is at 3. So what you could also do, right, is you can kind of trigger it with the 2k no trigger Hiyori with this Nekomamushi, and then you can kind of stack them, and then next turn you can like kill a sugar for free if they're playing Fortress Yamato, right? It just requires a lot of thinking and a lot of like works around, but for the most part Nekomamushi is just a 1k. However, if he does come off of trigger and you can see that his board state might be a bit hard to handle, then Nekomamushi would be the perfect card that you would need for the situation. Up next is Inuarashi. Inuarashi is also an interesting card. For 2 Dawn attached, when attacking, you may trash 1 card from your hand, and if you do, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of equal or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. And for the trigger is the same trigger as Nekomamushi. So Inuarashi is kind of an interesting card. I never really found a way to properly utilize the card, in the sense that not a lot of matchups are benefited from this sort of thing. Like Katakuri, he really doesn't play anything besides a Sanji, or maybe Sanji the 2k, I mean the Perospero maybe, or like a Pudding, right? So there's not a lot of time where Inuarashi can shine, unfortunately. It's a card that I really like. It's a very niche effect. I really do appreciate how the idea of the card. However, like the best scenario I can see you probably using this card, and using it quite often, is like the Zoro matchup, if I'm being honest. I don't think there's anywhere else that I can think of. Maybe Red Green Law, but other than that, the card doesn't really get to do the triggers quite self on its own, if anything. If it was both of your life, then that would be disgusting, if I'm honest. So it's kind of, I guess it is what it is, you know. So up next, we have arguably one of the more core cards in the deck, a playset of Kikunojos. Kikunojo is a 4-drop 6k character who which reads on KO, if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, and add up to one card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. And the trigger is the same as Nekomamushi and Inuarashi, where it says that if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you can play this card, which is amazing, by the way. So by now you should probably see and understand how like the deck synergizes, in the sense that this Hiyori can kind of place any of these 4 cards on the life, and then you can kind of like stack the life like that, and then your cards are essentially playing themselves for maximum value and on your opponent's turn. So that is also always something that you would like to do. But Kikunojo is such a disgusting card. There's the fact that for a 4-drop, you drop a 6k, and it's basically incentivizes your opponent to not kill this card just because of him wanting to add life again, which is something that we need in order for us to play the sustain game. I mean, at the end of the day, more life is better for us. However, just having this and you attach 1 Dawn to it and it's already a 7k is such a good card, if I'm honest. So yeah, I feel like this is probably one of the more important cards of the deck in terms of what you want to be doing. I'll explain later, because I will be doing a segment where we talk about the matchups, and that might be something that would be of interest to you. But that's pretty much it for Kikunojo. It's just an amazing card. If you can play one of, that's great. If you can play 2 in a game, that's perfect. I've had games where I've had 3, and let me tell you, it was one of the most fun games I've played, just because of my opponent couldn't do literally anything. So next up, we have a playset of Kosuke Momonosuke. Kosuke Momonosuke is a 5-drop 6k leader, which is a character which is a blocker, and on play you add up to one of your Land of Wano type cards other than Kosuke Momonosuke to the top or bottom of the owner's life, cards face up. So this card is disgusting. Honestly, we don't play a lot of blockers. This is one of the only this is the only blocker that we play. But the fact that this thing can bounce up literally anything as long as it's Wano means that you could probably, like, ideally do, right, on your 7-Dawn turn, you play Kozuki Hiyori, take a life, you add Thunderbolt if you want, and then you bounce Hiyori back to the bottom of life, and then you gain a life for the turn while also stacking the life, and then 2 cards which are in the life is just a very good thing to have. Kosuke Momonosuke unfortunately cannot be searched by the kid, cannot bounce the kid, my bad. Cannot bounce the 1-drop version of Momonosuke because it does say other than Kosuke Momonosuke, and that is a different Momonosuke but the same name, so this won't work, which is quite annoying actually, because maybe you want to play this and then search and then you bounce it next turn or something. I mean, it's a really weird line, don't get me wrong, but that is one of the outs that you might have, right? Because you maybe want to desperately search for another card or something like that. But it is quite annoying how, like, that is not allowed. One of the things about this card is that it's also potentially used as an attacker, because if they want to kill it, it still serves as a blocker. But I guess it's also very context based on what you want to do. Maybe it's always the best scenario to always swing with your Momonosuke. I kind of use it for board clear if I'm going to end out a game. There's always something that you should be doing with Momonosuke, in the sense that if you can kind of have him in the board and establishes itself on the board, that's great. Ideally, you kind of want to use this to kind of bounce your Kozuki Hiyori's to the life while also using it the same turn, so you kind of stack a life and then you kind of place her back, so you can kind of do this loop if you can with Momonosuke, right? That's pretty much it though. Up next are one of my probably the most favorite cards in the game at the moment, Hod Jones. Hod Jones, I love this guy. I have a playset of the Jesus Jones. So, Hod Jones is a 7-drop 8k with Rush that says, on play, rest up to 2 of your opponent's characters or Dawn, then add 1 card from the top of your life cards from your hand. The fact that this thing says or Dawn is such a heinous thing that I can't believe that I'm reading. It's not always the case that you're gonna use it, right? I know it's more oftentimes than not you guys gonna rest 2 blockers and you're gonna go for a game. But what if he doesn't have blockers and he has 2 blast spreads right in hand, and you know that those things are there? I would just slap Hod Jones. If you have no blockers, that's great. I will slap it, rest your 2 Dawn, and you are in for a world of hurt. You could also do this to Whitebeard, or any red deck if they run fucking red beams. Then yeah, they're not gonna use them with Hod Jones. It is quite interesting in the terms of how the card functions. I feel like the balance of this is, if you're gonna use it and your opponent is still alive, you probably lost the game. So it kind of carries a lot of high risk and high reward if it works out. But the card is kind of like, if you're gonna play me, you better finish the game. Otherwise, you're gonna go along with me. Still one of my more favorite cards of the game. Sorry about that. Because if you're gonna use this, you can probably use Yamato's effect And if you're gonna use Yamato's effect, you could play Hod Jones, then you play Amaru, and then you give it to this, and then now she's an 8k, you attach 1 Dawn to her, you swing 9k, right? And then if he takes and has no life, then you can just like power up Hod Jones with 2 Dawn, goes up to 10, and then you attach another Dawn, and then it's an 11k, and you do 9-11, and then you kind of swing Kikunojos, and maybe you could have like, I don't know, there's like a whole plethora of things you could do, right? But like, Hod Jones is such a disgusting card, man. I just love it so much. But most of the time people do play around it, which is kind of sad, I'll be honest. But if it works, then man, I fucking love this card. So, up next, definitely one of the top contenders of my favorite, of the cards that I have in my decks, which are my favorite, Roro Noa Zoro. Roro Noa Zoro is a 9-drop 9k character, which says, and I'm not making this up, guys, when attacking, once per turn, if you pay 1 Dawn, you can set this character as active, which means it can attack again on that turn. And activate main for 2 Dawn, once per turn, you can set this character as active. So what that means is that this Zoro, if you play it out, and your opponent doesn't get rid of it or kills you before this thing can swing, he has a minimum of 4 swings coming at him next turn, which means that what you could do when this Zoro can hit is you play Zoro and you play Banish Nami, you give Zoro Banish, and then you use Yamato to give 2 rested Dawn to Zoro. So now Zoro is an 11k triple attack Banish, right? So if he has no blockers and this guy doesn't know what's happening to him, what you could also do in very rare instances, right? Very rare instances, you could play Hod Jones as well the next turn. So then you have 1 Dawn left. Then you could do swing 11k, 11k, 11k. You attach 1 Dawn to him, so he's a 9k, and then he has 4 swings where he needs to give you at least 3 cards or a 4k event card, right? But like the levels of disgustingness that you can achieve when you drop Zoro and it works out for you, then it's so salty, bro. I love it. The thing though with Zoro, because obviously people are gonna know what's gonna happen if they don't kill that thing, is that they can do 2 things that I can think of at the top of my head at the moment. Is they can either just flat out end the game themselves if they can manage, or they're going to set themselves up for, if they can survive the swing, you are not gonna win next turn. Or what could happen for you is you create so much tempo, like so much pressure, that they are literally unable to come back, right? Because if everything goes to plan, when you play Zoro, you should still have an active blocker in play, if everything goes well. So what I mean by this is, if you're in a situation where you can't play Zoro, right, this card is a very good card to play nonetheless, right? But it's so important to place this at the right time. So, because 9 Dawn is your entire turn. If you're gonna play Zoro and you're not gonna play anything else, you need to be sure that what is coming to you next turn is something you can sustain, and you sustain it well, to the point where if you play Zoro, the game doesn't shift so hard for you that it's all dependent on the Zoro, unless you know you can kill him. And this, what I mean by this is, what if he has 3 life left, right? And he has like 3 cards in hand. Zoro most likely will not survive, will not finish the game for you, on a very matchup dependent, in the sense that if you're playing against, for example, like if you're playing against decks with high counter, like green decks, or some decks that like have a way to mitigate Zoro from repeatedly swinging, like Katakuri, right, which plays at 4 pages or at multiple amounts of triggers. If Zoro cannot end the game for you, and you're positive that he can't, or at least give you significant value to the rest of the game, then you don't play Zoro. You never play Zoro, right? Don't get me wrong, I've played him multiple times, and most of the times I probably lost because I played Zoro instead of having a more useful turn, like maybe using the Kozuki, the Hiro Momo combo, or maybe I should have pressed for life before doing that so I have an easier time doing it next turn. It is definitely one of the more cards that you need a lot of skill in the sense of game knowledge, so you understand like the board states and stuff like that. It is definitely one of those cards where you need to be careful, right? But nonetheless, this card is disgusting. I fucking love this card. It's probably my favorite card from the set as well. I just love Zoro so much. But yeah, moving on. The last character we're going to play, I'm pretty sure, is a playset of 9-cost Yamato. 9-cost Yamato is basically spot removal, depending on how much you guys have life, and it also heals you for a life. So it's just such a nice card to play, if I'm honest. Yamato is a 9k 9-drop leader character, which says on play, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal or less than the total of your and your opponent's life cards, and then if you have one or less life cards, add up to one of your cards from the top of your deck to your life. So Yamato, at least this version of Yamato, you play for the long game and you try to sustain as much as you can in order for your opponent to whittle them down to a point where he can't really keep up, and you're in such a safe position that you can pretty much do anything you want in a sense. Yamato kind of prevents that, helps with that, I mean, by establishing a 9k on the board, and you also heal in certain situations, because ideally what you want to do is you want to get down to 1 life and then you kind of play out Yamatos if you have them in hand, right? But this card is very nice. It kind of gives you healing, which you kind of need in this deck. Although you're not stacking it, it's still life cards that you need in your life anyway, so who really cares, you know? Also, it just being a 9-drop is gonna be hard to remove unless your opponent is Sakuzuki. Then he can probably do that with an Ice Age swing combo, and then he has a way to probably remove it or something. I don't know. I mean, like if you Ice Age that shit, it goes down to 4. If you swing, then you could get it down to 3, and then you do Great Eruption, get it down to 1, and then you can pop something else with a 2k with Lucci. So like that's disgusting, man. But yeah, not really much else to say about the card. It is quite a good card, I'll be honest. But it's just, I don't really think there's much more to say. So, moving on, 1 second. Moving on, our events for the deck are quite straightforward. You're the one who should disappear. It's a 0 Dawn card, which has a counter that says you may trash 1 card from your hand, and up to one of your leader or characters gains +3 for this battle. So basically it's one of those cards that every color has where you can kind of trash a card and you gain 3k. I'm really trying to find out names. There's like Bad Maris Kick Course, I think. I just really can't think of any cards at the moment that come into my head. Anyways, this card is pretty good. What makes this card very good for us though is the trigger. If you have 0 life cards, you may add up to 1 card from the top card of your deck to the top of your life, and then you trash a card from hand. This thing is so nice, and anytime you pop it, it's just so nice. Seeing like a free Amaru trigger with the cost of 1 card instead of 2, that's value, man. The downside to it is you have to be 0 life, which is kind of unfortunate, but I'll get into this with the next card. This card, I really want to use it as counter, unless you know that you're probably not gonna live with the amount of swings your opponent is gonna swing at you next turn. I'll be honest. But nonetheless, it is arguably one of the best events that you can play in your deck, considering everything and how little counter you have in this deck. Last but not least, Counter Million for tomorrow. I'm not gonna really tell you why this card is so good. Because I feel if you don't know, then I guess it's time for you to learn what it does. So 200 million for tomorrow was a 2-drop event, which says main up to one of your leader your character cards gains plus GK for the power during this turn. Then, if you have one or less life cards, rest up to one of your opponents with characters with a cost of 4 or less. This card is so disgusting. People even wanted it banned. Okay, I don't agree with that. There's a lot of hot takes out there. That is, in my opinion, kind of one of them. The reason for that is the card is just a win condition card, right? If you have this and you're in a situation where you can cheat out a win, more power to the player, man. Like, okay, I guess it's kind of biased. I kind of play yellow, and I've been only playing yellow. But like, if people have some of the most disgusting vile cards, where if you play it, you probably won, like 10-drop Luffy, or I don't know, what else? Like 9-drop Kaido against like most yellow decks and Whitebeard and stuff like that, right? I'm just giving examples. I know I'm just rambling, but this card is just one of those cards where if you play it and you're gonna use it how it's supposed to be used, and you don't expect the card even being in your opponent's hand, I feel like that's where you're making the mistake. You should always try to anticipate if he has a Maru in his hand, and you should play around that in the sense that, you know, if you think that he has it, why not just like try to mitigate the Amaru in the sense. I don't know how else I can explain that better, but it is a very strong card for sure, though. I agree with them, it's a very strong card. What makes this card even more special, though, is the trigger. The trigger says you may trash 2 cards from your hand, and if you do, add up to 1 card from the top card of your deck to the top of your life. So it's essentially trash 2 cards and you heal, which is amazing. This card, I mean, it pretty much speaks for itself. This card is amazing. I love this card so much. The amount of times of games that I've won, or the triggers that made me, the amount of times I triggered it and made me win, playing Katakuri at least, is just so big that I just love this card so much, and I have really nothing else to say about the card, if I'm honest. So that's pretty much it for the deck list, though. I will post the deck list in the bottom of the description. I'm not thinking today. Notable things about the deck, the pros and the cons, right? The deck is quite fun, if I'm honest. It is arguably one of the most fun decks I've ever played in One Piece so far, besides Katakuri. But it is definitely a deck that you should consider in this meta. OP-06 is going to be, at least from the last regional that happened yesterday at the time of this recording, the metagame did seem quite healthy, and there was a Yamato in the top. So it's definitely a deck that could make, definitely can top. I mean, the problems with this list, in my opinion, is there's not a lot of counter. Like this card, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards with counter. The rest is all no counter. Which, to be fair, it's more of the higher end cost cards that don't have counter, but you probably not gonna use them, if I'm honest. That's pretty much it, though. You're not going to really be using all them that much all that often. However, that's pretty much it. I don't think I can mention anything else from my side of things. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe. I post content almost every other day, or at least try to achieve that. If you guys have any ideas on what decks you want me to play, I did post a post here on YouTube, and people wanted me to play Perona, so this will probably come after that video, or rather, I will post a video on Perona after this video. I'm going to do so bad, I feel like. I don't know how to play black and green, I'll be honest. But yeah, if you guys have any ideas on what I should play, please don't hesitate to leave a comment on my videos. Let me know what you want to play. Unless that one guy who keeps commenting bald, which is kind of funny actually. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate you guys. You guys mean the world to me. If you need anything with regards to maybe advice that I give out on my videos and you want me to explain a bit further, let me know, and I'll just do my best to answer everyone. I feel like I did a good job so far. So, yep, thank you very much and stay awesome. Peace.